Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to one of my replays, except we're actually starting off with a bit of footage from somebody else. This is Luna Valkyrie, he's in the OI experimental and that's what this video is going to be about. But rather than show his full replay, which was otherwise, it was an okay game, but nothing particularly special apart from this one moment. He saw an opportunity to do something epic and he took it. Now, I was very tempted to put in Godzilla Scream here, Godzilla Roar, but I honestly couldn't find a good quality one that would fit exactly. So, if you imagined it in your head, you're not the only one, but sadly I couldn't find an actual example that would go with this particularly wonderful moment. So there we go, that's what 100 tons of tank belly flopping onto a T-34-85 looks like. Now you know. So this machine has the distinction of being, I think, the biggest tier 5 in the game. It is ridiculously big, as all the Japanese heavies from tier 5 upwards are. That doesn't particularly mean that it's well armoured though. It's got the same nominal hull value as the KV-1, 75mm, which is pretty good for tier 5. But because it's so big, and because the armour on the turret is comparatively weaker than the KV-1, well, the temptation is to think, oh, I'm in this incredibly armoured beast, but even when you're top tier, very top tier like this, there are still plenty of things that can hurt you. And even if you're side scraping and angling and whatever, your turret is still a pretty vulnerable point. However, it kind of makes up for that with having a pretty beefy gun. It's not got exceptionally high penetration, it's 130, which is, it's still pretty good, but it's not quite as good as some of the other tier 5 heavies, but it also has 300 average damage. Now if you've played up the Japanese medium line, the stock gun on this is a 12 centimeter derp, which is not very good, quite frankly. It's only a little bit better than the 105mm derps, but yeah, it's not really the gun you want to be grinding with. I've tried using it once or twice, but the 75mm that you get from the medium tank line is, I think, more than sufficient to actually grind out the top gun with. There's also a very expensive engine on this thing, but the engines kind of skip across the tier, so it probably is worth grinding out the engine while you've got this, because it's a pretty fun machine to play. So I had a bit of a trade with that Stug 3. I actually came over to this side expecting there to be some of the enemy heavy tanks. And there is technically an enemy heavy, but it's the Type 91, the tier 3. So not much of a threat. Our own KV-1 is over here as well. There's also a T-34, so this is maybe more of our top tiers than needed to be here. But by the time we've kind of figured out what the enemy team is doing, yeah, they're all basically on the eastern half of this map. Very few of them bothered coming over this side. And my thought was, well, if it comes to that, we can flank up, around and behind them. But our teammates are just dying a bit too rapidly for that to really be effective. Because our we did have some heavies over there. We had a Churchill 1 and a T1 heavy, but they've both died. And the enemy top tiers are, yeah, they're just kind of pushing through rather easily, but it's not like there's a massive disparity in numbers here. It's 7-9. So instead I actually turn back to face them as they're trying to come round behind us, and if they do this as a big group, then that could be problematic. But if they do it more in dribs and drabs, because we actually have a Hetzer that's gone around, we can see there's at least one of the enemy top tiers has turned back south, the Churchill. So that gives me maybe a bit more time to work with and a bit more opportunity to use my gun, because it's a nearly 10-second reload on this gun, which is fair enough. I mean, this is a gun that's more than capable of one-shotting some of the lower tiers. And I'm not sure if that's entirely balanced or not, but it is what it is. So the Chinu just kind of jinks out the way of my shot in time, and I see that he's, yeah, I see what you're doing, you're trying to flank there, and I tried to get a bit of angle, but he manages to pen anyway. But I set him on fire, take a big chunk of his health, so that's fine. Now the KV-1 is one shot for me. That's one less tank to be worried about. And the T-34 actually looks like he's coming up to assist as well. Meanwhile, what the enemies are doing, well, the Churchill and the other KV-1 are still on the 7-8 line. They're not pushing round at all. And it's this kind of coming in dribs and drabs that makes things a lot easier for me. Meanwhile, yeah, that's a pair of tier 3 derp equipped machines. Not really a threat. I could have actually tried to ram this BT-7 artillery, but instead I just shot him, which I'm retroactively disappointed in myself that I didn't try that. So I've evened things out very nicely. I've gotten a big chunk of damage out of that, and it just remains to take down these remaining 2 enemy top tier heavy tanks. But that's easier said than done, because I know they have guns that are more than good enough to punch through my armour. So what I try here instead is to actually, well, I first blow a hole through that carriage, because that gives me potentially an opportunity to shoot through the wreckage. You can't fire through railway carriages in order to actually, you can't pen what's on the other side, but if you wreck them, you can then shoot through the gaps of the wrecked carriage, basically. So it's not like a wall, but you still can, at the cost of a shell and the cost of a couple of seconds reload, create an opportunity. Now I was trying to side scrape there, but he was able to just basically put one through my turret. So that's what to do. That's what you do if you encounter an OI experimental that happens to be side scraping. You just shoot it through the turret because it's not particularly strong. So the T-34 is very, very low health at this point. The Churchill shows no inclination of coming around to help his KV ally. He did kill that M3 Stuart though, who went on a bit of an epic adventure. I don't have a lot of hit points left to spend at this point, so if we're going to make a push of this, and I keep trying for these chancy shots, and there we go, that one actually pays off rather nicely. I need the KV-1 to take the lead. And at this point, I'm trying to use the... It doesn't show up in the messages, but basically I'm trying to ping the KV-1 with the function keys. And I keep pinging F4, which is fall back. And I must have been confusing the hell out of this guy, because I was trying to ping him to follow me. And instead, I was just mashing all the wrong keys, and yeah, you can see in the chat. Damn it, I can't remember which one it is. So that was your moment of Jedi dirt for the day. I could not remember the function key to get somebody to follow me, but eventually I somehow, you know, he got the idea that, you know, we should stick together, and it's one lone Churchill, and that we can take him. And it turns out this Churchill actually has the 6-pounder gun as well. I think it's the faster firing gun. At least I think it is. But that still has more than enough pen to get through the armour of the OI experimental. I almost wonder if we shouldn't be calling it the OI, or is that just me with my Scottish tendencies? Anyway, I got perfect damage roll, and I know I've got more than enough pen to get through the front of his turret. And if he's going to fire, he's going to fire at the KV, so that's fine. And then I make a mistake. Yeah, I probably should have actually aimed that shot, because that just cost me a top gun. Oh well. But it was still a fairly fun match, and I think this was the first actually decent match I had in this thing out of the first kind of 10-15 battles, so that wasn't too bad. A bunch of the ribbons there. I got a high caliber, second class. It's alright. 2200 damage. 1100 base XP, so that was a pretty decent game, and as you can see, our Hetzer did very nicely for himself as well. So yeah, I like this, kind of. I mean, I kind of went in expecting the armour would be more effective than it is, but it sort of makes up for it by having that rather big gun, and by also having pretty good mobility for its size. It has actually a pretty good power to weight ratio, and the top speed isn't too bad either, so it will move around the battlefield fairly well, and you know, that is sometimes useful when you want to belly flop onto a T-34-85, just to pick an example at random. But as for the rest of the line, I think it's I've heard mixed things about some of the later tiers. I mean, the tier 6 looks like it'll be fun with the derp gun. The tier 7 not really sure about. The tier 8 looks pretty solid, and the tier 9, well, Circon, he's up to there already, and I've heard other people say as well that they don't like it that much, and it's kind of like a less reliable E100 gun, and I know all too well the frustrations of using the E100's gun. I've kind of made my peace with it at this point, the 15cm, but if the Tier 9 basically has a worse handling version of that, then yeah, no, I can see why that would be a source of frustration. So anyway, there we go, a bit of Tier 5 action. I'm going to keep hammering away at these. At the very least, I'm going to be trying to get my dailies. I might even be doing a bit of actual grinding, because this line is, as I have said many times previously, very, very relevant to my interests for some reason. So, if you enjoyed this slice of low-tier Gojira action, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and, as always, stay tuned for more.